this represents a benchmark which we've never had. My late father would be proud of his grandson. You know, I am proud of my son. My son is being taught to be fierce where this art, this craft, this life of boxing is concerned, and he is what he is. He's been brought up by someone who is obsessed about this art form, and he's taken on this energy, this sense that will represent the country well in this, in our view, the most wonderful of sports. So at this point, I should now pass over to yourselves in terms of any questions.
Is there a roving mic anyway?
A roving mic?
Chris, morning. Kaylee and Sarah from Channel 4 News. You'll be aware, Chris, that ringside cameras captured a moment during the fight where you were talking to your son, and you appeared to be saying to him, "Don't hit Nick Blackwell in the face, hit him in the body." Why did you say that? Was it because you were worried about his health, or was it a tactical recommendation that would be the best way to win the fight?
Okay, now the first thing I'll point out to you, and you can reference this with sparring partners who come down to Brighton. So even in sparring, I tell Junior, stay away from their heads. His punching ability is fast, it's powerful, and it is dangerous. So most certainly, it was said to protect the fighter. He had already won the fight, in my view, and I'm not looking at the fight from the judge's point of view. I'm looking at it from my experience. And he didn't lose a round. So in my view at that point, and there's another point in the fight where I said to him specifically, stay away from his head. But the cameras didn't pick that up. I think it was in the, maybe at the back of the 8th round, or maybe the 7th round, where I said, stay away from his head, because he's already won the fight. But also, body shots will stop fighters. He has the ability and the power to stop fighters to the stomach. No sense in going to the head. And this is referenced also in the press conference I did with Junior and Ronnie on Thursday at the Wembley Arena. So if you watch that interview, you can hear me saying, or making points that would make reference to saying to Junior, stay away from the head. This is a very dangerous sport, and we are real. As a family of fighters, we are real.
So at that moment, just to be clear, were you worried that Nick had already begun to sustain potentially serious head injuries, brain injuries? And on that note, do you think the fight should have been stopped earlier? Because you appeared to say, I don't know why the ref hasn't stopped the fight.
Well, of course, but I cannot speak for the Boxing Board of Control. I cannot speak for the referee. He has his own mind and his own discretion. But I've been in there. I know what it feels like. I've been saying how dangerous Junior is for the last 2 years. Again, reference back to that press conference. Everything that was said in that press conference was kind of like a, I wouldn't say premonition, but a common sense point of view. Junior is what he is. I said to Nick, I said, you have to be on your game. We're real. This is not, to us it's not a game. To us it's a way of life.
Hello, ITV News, Duncan Golostani. My question is to Chris Eubank Jr. When you heard what had happened to Nick Blackwell after the fight, what was your reaction?
When I heard the news, it was, it was tough to hear. No fighter. We don't go in there to cause that type of damage to an opponent. You go in there, and I say this before all my fights. It's never anything personal. It's things may be said leading up to the fight. It's two men that are going in there. They're putting their pride on the line. They're putting their, they're putting their fans on the line. They're putting everything on the line in front of a huge audience. So things are said as if there's back and forth. There's a lot of testosterone flying around. But at the end of the day, no fighter wants to see the man after the fight in any type of serious condition. So it was upsetting to hear that, and the first thing I did was, I tweeted him. I said to him, you're a true fighter, you're a true warrior, and I wish you a speedy recovery, because at the end of the day, it is a business. It's not personal. I'm not going in there to try and ruin somebody's career or to damage them. I just wanted to achieve my lifelong ambition of becoming the British champion, which I've done. I'm extremely proud, and it's just a shame that this is kind of, it's kind of taken away from that a little bit. But it's, this is boxing. This is, it's not a game. You play football, you play rugby, you play cricket. You don't play boxing. It's two men going in there, and they are putting their lives on the line. We are fighting for our livelihood. So it's not to be taken lightly.
For Chris Eubank Senior, Warren Eccleford from Channel 5 News. Did the events of Michael Watson, was it on your mind during that night?
On my mind, it's part of my brain, which is why, as I say, his last sparring session was with a fellow called Joe Pickford. It's part of my brain, so even in sparring, when fighters have head guards on their faces, I'm still speaking safety. Junior, you don't need to go to the head. He punches too fast, too accurate, too high a pace. It's not worth it. I've had sparring partners who slur their speech now. Most of the damage is done in the gym because you have bigger gloves and you have the head guards, which causes thuds. In a fight, because the gloves are smaller, you have cracks. And the cracks aren't as damaging unless you're fighting someone who is devastating, but you can't see that in Junior yet because he's still growing. I mean, what you can see now will get better. He will mature. He will become more efficient. He will be turning his punches over. He's going to become a better fighter, and he will do. He's still more or less in his apprenticeship, but he's ready for top world, which was proven.
A lot of my training is documented on my Snapchat account, and you can hear my father in some of these spars saying, easy, calm down, take it easy. A lot of people come up to me and comment, why did you tell you to stop punching that guy in the head, or why did he tell you to ease off on that guy? Because to most people, in a fight situation, when you're fighting somebody, they think there's hatred involved. They think it's just, I want to get this guy, and but they don't understand that as fighters, you're supposed to keep your emotions out of boxing. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to be thinking. You're supposed to be, you're supposed to be constantly calculating what you're doing. You're not going in there emotionally charged. I hate this guy, I want to knock him out. Especially not in training. You're trying to you're trying to help yourself and you're trying to help your sparring partners raise. So this is why in these sparring sessions and eventually even in the fight, when you see a man is hurt, truly hurt, and you know that it's not going to really do any good to further that. It's in his nature to tell me to back off, and I believe that's why he told me at that time when he saw the Nick's condition to tell me to go to the body. When as a fighter, as a warrior, I'm in there and I'm just seeing. I'm tunnel vision. I've got to do my job. I've got to get this guy out. He needed to remind me. I can't see some of the things he sees. I'm just seeing a guy who's in there trying to take away my legacy, trying to beat me in front of millions of people. So I'm like, I got to do what I've got to do. He can see that the condition the guy's in, and it's all perspective. So that's why I believe he said, he could see the guy who had nothing left, and body, his health is in danger now. So go to the body.
Question for Chris Eubank Jr. In the days since the fight, given what's happened, have you questioned your own motivation at all to carry on in the sport?
Not at all. This is boxing. We as fighters we know the risks. We know that we are risking our health every time we step into the ring. But it's a risk that we are willing to pay, because we know that with these risks comes great reward, whether that be financially, whether that be career-wise. You have to risk to achieve anything in life. I've been fighting, I've been boxing since I was 15 years old, and I've always known. You hear the stories, you read up on fighters that end up punch drunk and with serious injuries. The risks. It's just one of those things where you train as hard as you can. You prepare your body physically. You prepare your mind mentally as much as possible to try and avoid becoming someone that's affected by a serious injury. You can't go into a fight worrying about that. If you go into a fight thinking, oh, I might get hurt, then you most likely will. You need to go in there believing that you are untouchable. I will continue to. I'll continue my career. Obviously, I've achieved my British Championship belt now, and now I'm looking to challenge for a world title. I'm climbing the ladder, and I love the sport. It's just such a shame now that we have this situation on our hands, and I can't stress enough that of how much I want Nick to make a speedy recovery.
Chris over here, Warren Horton from TalkSport. When your father sat you down after that round, bearing in mind, I'm sure he's told you stories what happened with Michael Watson, and while he was talking to you, and what was your mindset when you went out for that next round?
It's tough. It's tough to hear. It's tough to hear somebody tell you when you're in a fight. It's do or die. It really is. It's you've got to do what you've got to do. So to hear somebody say, take it back a notch, do something different, it's tough to adjust to. But at the same time, I knew I was far ahead on the scorecards, or I knew I should have been, and it's. I don't know. I mean, at the time, it was still do or die. I was like, I've got to do my job. I've got to go in there and win the fight. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, has this guy had enough? And I think before the fight was stopped, if you watch that round, I had stopped my onslaught. I thought to myself, okay, this guy is hurt, and so maybe I took it down a notch. You see, I'm playing. It's like I've won the fight, so let me just let me put on a little bit of a show. I'm still being, people are still watching, so I wasn't throwing so many punches. I was kind of putting on a little show, and then the referee, decided to take Nick to the corner. The doctor looked at him, and they called the fight off. Which, in looking back at it now, I'm very happy that happened, because I'm very happy that the doctor stopped the fight, because it didn't seem like the referee was going to, and obviously any more punishment would have been unnecessary in my opinion.
And Chris Senior, finally, you've spoken about your son with sparring partners. You've spoken about in mind what happened on Saturday. Do you genuinely fear for any of his future opponents?
Again, in the last press conference, and in fact, in his interviews, I've been saying this for 2 years. What happened was he fought Billy Jake Saunders, and he gave away the first 6 rounds. And in giving away the first 6 rounds, because he wasn't sure about the 12-round distance, because he had never gone the 12-round distance before, he effectively gave the fight to Saunders. So then my rhetoric about his ability and his strength and his punching power, I then had to start keeping quiet. As Nick actually said to me at the last press conference, he said, yeah, you said that he'd be in danger and your son got beat. And I said, yes, that's right, and that's why I've had to stop talking. I said, but in that he's given away that fight, he gave away the first 6 rounds, it's because of that why he lost the fight. I said, Nick, he's not going to be doing that anymore. So you really have to be on your game. You can go back and listen to it. I said, Junior is dangerous. We are real. This is not sport to us. It's when you have a father who is obviously obsessed. That's how I did what I did. That's how I got there. I was obsessed, and he's picked up this trait. His work ethic is remarkable. And if I am as odd as everyone seems to think that I am, then this is my offspring. And he seems compos mentis, doesn't he? But he's going to have something in him from me. Okay, and I'm saying to you that, as I said to the referee, you've got to protect. You've got to protect these young men. Referees, not this particular referee individually, referees generally have to be mindful of, you can go back, you've heard me say this before. So, sad what's happened, as again, we're not going to celebrate until he makes a full recovery. We've said there's been no celebration. We're not sending out pictures. We're not talking the talk. We're British champions, and we are serious. For you, the spectators, the boxing fans, for the people who love the entertainment of sport, I've been trying to say for some years, you have a very good representative in this young man here, because we are real. We're real. That means, in fights we can't win, we don't stop. And that's what the society in itself taught us to be. Be real, have integrity. Don't be a fake. We've abided by these prerequisites for being proper people. I've believed in what society has asked me to actually develop. Good manners, good conduct, common sense, character, integrity, dignity, trust, patience. I've developed these virtues that you, the society, asked me or the young generation to develop. Well, I developed them. And I brought my son up unconsciously to develop the same. So we're real. We're not in this for, this is not about money so much. Money is part of it. It's one of the riches we get from it. But this is what we do. And here in Junior, you have the next generation.
Christopher Senior, do you worry for the health and risk to your own son every time he steps into the ring?
Flippantly, I sometimes say, my concern is for the opponents. He is the danger. What is that based on? It's based on what virtues I've developed. I'm real, so he is. And I can see the distance and ability between him and these opponents. But no one's listening to me. They think I'm odd. Oh, and they say, well, he's talking rubbish again. Speaks 2 languages, English and rubbish. But it's not real. He's real.
Junior, could I ask, sorry Chris, can I ask you, during the course of the fight, this fight and other fights, how hard it is to tell how badly hurt an opponent is? I mean, through experience you'll see it, like the weight of the punch and the effect it has. How difficult it is to work out how badly hurt your opponent is?
It all depends on the opponent. One thing that I've taught myself throughout my years of training and fighting, sparring, is to hide all emotions. So if you punch me in the stomach and I lose every breath in my body and I can't breathe, I'm still going to be looking at you like this. You're not gonna have any idea that you've done that to me. Whereas other fighters, and some fighters have that poker face, some fighters don't. The fighters that don't, you can see it in their, they'll grimace when they're being hit. They'll make sounds. Those fighters, you can tell where they are and how in what condition they're in. Nick was he was a warrior, and he kept coming forward, even smiling at times sometimes when I hit him, talking. So he still had fight in him. Some people say he was too tough for his own good. But that's what you have to be as a fighter, I believe. You have to have that mentality. I don't care what you're going to do to me. I don't care what how much pain I'm in. I'm not stopping. So I have a lot of respect for him.
So John Ryle from ITV News and Radio. This question to both of you, please. As far as you're concerned, is there a lesson for boxing in this situation? Is there anything you'd like any change you'd like to see it produce?
I think everything everything that happened on the night was very professional. He was tended to immediately. It wasn't like the times with my father and Michael Watson where there was hold-ups and he didn't arrive at hospital until hours after the event. So I don't believe there needs to be any changes as far as how the fighters are being looked after by medically. I think it's just up to the referees and the teams to be responsible with their fighters, but that's the thing. Every team, every referee has their own mind, and everyone sees a situation in a different light. Some people are watching the fight and thinking, he's okay, you can keep going. And other people are thinking, what the hell is he doing still in the ring? The most highly professional people, you know, that are available there at the time to make the best decision.
Did you have a sense in the 7th round that Victor Lachlan was looking in at the action at the time and was having a very close look at Nick in the 7th?
I mean, there was a couple of times where I was, you know, unleashing high volumes of punches and combinations, speed and power. I'm sure the referee was there watching, and you know, obviously having to make the decision: do I let this continue, or should I stop it? He decided not to, and in the end, the doctor was the one that stopped it because of the eye. I can't sit here and say that the referee should or shouldn't have done, you know, something he's paid to do a job. He's a professional, and he saw fit to let Nick continue to take the punches that he took. You know, it is what it is. I was there. I just did what I was supposed to do. I did there. I went into the ring and I did my job. It was nothing personal. I didn't go in there trying to, you know, hoping that Nick would end up in hospital. You know, no fighter really truly wants that. They just want. I wanted the belt, and I said that from the beginning. I haven't got anything against you, Nick. I'm sure you're a great guy. I just want you to know.
Chris Jr. Charlotte Wright from LBC. Was there ever a point, you mentioned your tunnel vision, was there ever a point where you thought, actually, this fight needs to stop now and I want the referee to intervene, or did that not cross your mind?
Well, if you watch the last round, you can see me easing off. You know, I knew I'd severely hurt him, and I'd seen his eye as well. I was thinking to myself, you know, there's no way that they can let this keep going on. So maybe let me just back off a little bit, you know, have a little bit of fun, put on a little bit of a show, and we'll go from there and we'll see what happens. And then I think that gave the referee maybe a little bit of extra time to kind of really look at Nick, see his condition, and then, you know, he kind of stepped in, took him to one side, and the doctor stopped it.
Were you worried about him?
Was I worried about Nick?
You mean during the fight?
Yeah.
You can't really ask me that, because it's, you know, I'm in there, I'm in a fight. Nick is there trying to punch me in the face, so you can't ask me, am I worried about him while I'm fighting him? You know, it's tough, but you know, when I'm watching him after the fight and he's lying on the ground with oxygen mask, that's when worry sets in. Oh wow, this is I didn't realize this was gonna happen. You know, I hope he's okay. And I went over there, you know, you're gonna be all right, Nick. You know, everything's okay. I think he was unconscious at the time, but you know, this is the sport. These things happen. It's never intentional.
Ronnie, you've experienced quite a lot in boxing, both inside the ring and out. Did you feel like the fight had gone on too long?
I made a statement to my leg in the dressing room, which I was like, to take back. I'll tell you why, because I was very emotional when I came out. I've been through it with Chris, and I went over there, I saw the state with him, and when I come out into the dressing room, I was deeply upset, and I said, the referee should have stopped it, his corner should have pulled him out. But looking back, thinking about it, watching the fight again, they couldn't. That kid was always there. He kept fighting back, and he's got a name for toughness and coming back. So if you'd have pulled that kid out, he'd have broke his heart. Whether it was the right or wrong thing to do, but in my opinion now, looking back, the referee was right. So was his corner. You couldn't pull the kid out. It's a title fight. It's his life. What he's trained for all his life. It's his ambition. He's got a name for toughness and hardness, and he just kept fighting back. I wish he hadn't done. I wish he would have gone down, made it easier, but he didn't. So what could you do? So I didn't mean to disrespect the referee or his corner.
Hi, Haroon Sadiq from The Guardian. On a similar theme, I'm not asking you to point the finger at individuals, but Chris Eubank Senior, you mentioned earlier that we have to protect these boys. Nick Blackwell showed, I mean, insane bravery really on Saturday night. Is there a way you can, the Michael Watson situation was very different. It was a very competitive fight. It was one punch. I don't think anyone watching would say that Saturday's fight was particularly competitive. Certainly, who knows, it went on. So is there a way that more should be done to protect fighters when they're not giving? I mean, it was similar in some respects to Spike Sullivan. His corner chose to pull him out. Is there more that should be done to protect fighters who are perhaps too brave for their own good when it's so one-sided?
Okay, you mentioned the last fight with Spike Sullivan. The people looking after him are former champions. Steve Collins is a former champion. There's an algorithm. It's like a mathematical equation. It's a sensory perception. So we have this idea of when to and when not to, when enough is enough. But you have to have been in there to know that algorithm, to know that when a fighter isn't in there and isn't in there to win anymore, which is why they did pull him out. So I think to your question, I would say yes, perhaps former fighters will make great referees. We understand the feeling. It's a profound perception that you can't explain to someone who hasn't been there. Which is why, it's coming back to the point, even in sparring, I told Junior, okay, I'll tell you this. In his last sparring session, I said, no headshots. Not no, just, watch your headshots. If you don't, I'll stop the sparring. He was very edgy because, he was fighting in, 6 days. And he said, you're not stopping my sparring. He's a stallion. You can't control them. You can steer them, but you can't, they're not thoroughbreds. They're not tamed, they're wild. So he said, you're not stopping my sparring. I said to him, look, I'm not going to test you, but don't test me. Did this happen, Ron? Did this happen to you? Don't test me. I know, I understand. I understand what happens with the shots. They take their toll. We are not fans of anyone who takes shots. We admire Floyd Mayweather Jr. because he does what we were taught to do but can't, which is hit and don't get hit. There's nothing enlightening about being able to absorb punishment. I mean, yes, it shows great heart, but you must have the ability to actually protect your heart. So the ability is built by knowing the craft, which means you've got to be in the gym. And you have to treat the gym like a church. You have to go there and worship and learn this craft so you can protect your heart, your integrity to keep on going. Which is why his performance, we're talking about Nick Blackwell now, was magnificent in terms of his heart. But he didn't have the ability to protect his heart.
Chris, Senior, hello, Caroline Faraday from BBC News. You've obviously had time to reflect on Saturday night. Do you think that the advice you gave your son, do you think this would be a very different conversation if you hadn't done that? Do you think you saved Nick Blackwell's life?
I wouldn't say, that's... No, I mean, that's a conclusion I can't draw. I'm glad. I'm not even glad. I mean, this is what I do. As I say, I do this in the gym. This is a rule for me. what happened on Saturday night, it wasn't an exception. It's a rule for me. So I always have this stance. But I would do because I've been in there. I've tasted the bitter beatings. I know it's not a game for me when I was fighting. I know it's not a game for Junior, which is why I am so strict. I'm strict. I'm nobody's friend in this. I'm not all things to all people in this. I'm one way. My objective is to protect my fighter. And again, if you don't like that term fighter, then my son. My objective is to protect my fighter, my son. And I will treat all fighters the same. Because there is a camaraderie, there is a love for men who can do what we do.
So in that context, when you're saying protecting protect your son in like when you're saying protect Fearon, like in what context?
I'm there to protect
him going too far.
In terms of the opponent, when I see a fight is one-sided or has become one-sided, yes, if I can, I'm going to give my fight. It's not my job. It's not my job. It's not my job to do the referee's job. So I only could try and actually steer, influence my fighter, stroke son. It's all I can do. It's not as far as the referee is concerned, you have to ask him on what he did or the board of control. And as far as they're concerned, they have their story and their view. My view is to actually steer Junior. And I know what it is to actually be in this situation with a fighter who's stricken. And so, naturally, I'm going to have this rule. Again, wasn't an exception. So it wasn't an exception. This is my rule.
Gareth Davis from the Telegraph.
I'm Gareth Davis from the Telegraph. Christopher Senior again. What do you make of the comments from Peter Hamlin, the consultant neurosurgeon, about the fact that since your fight with Michael Watson 25 years ago, the overwhelming data that was gleaned from that was that it's title fights that land more boxers in hospital than any other fights, through injuries or situations like this. And that perhaps the board should look at potentially lowering the threshold of referees watching those fights and stepping in earlier in title bouts to make another safeguard going forward in the sport.
Sorry, that's something you have to pick up with Peter Hamlin. It's not for me to answer his perception.
But what you need to understand is when there's two fighters that are fighting for something they've been working for their entire lives, they reach new levels. They push themselves to points where they've never been before because they want to achieve. They've been on that road. They've been running, in the mornings for years. They've been taking beatings in the ring. They're going into the gym when they're ill, and they're going through all these hardships to get to this one point. So, they're going to move hell and earth to do what they have to do to win that title. And I think that's why that is why these injuries happen maybe more in title fights, because there's more to lose. And when there's more to lose, people risk it more.
And by definition, the title weight fights are tougher people, tougher exponents, tougher protectors.
Exactly. To get to that position where you're fighting for a belt, you have to be a certain grade. And when two fighters of a high grade clash, it can be a very explosive, a very dangerous event. And I think that, with what my father did, he did it because he could see how one-sided it was. If it was a situation where we're both, it's close, and you know, my opponent was hurt, but I was also in the same condition, then I don't think he would have given me the same advice. He couldn't have, because I have to protect myself, and by protecting myself, I have to stop him from trying to score points to knock me out. It's because the fight was so one-sided why he decided to give me that advice to stay away from the head. Thank you.
Chris Jr., one or two of us here will remember the trauma your father's fight. The care and attention he gave to him was fantastic, but it was a trauma for him, and we recall that he did wrestle with whether it was right to continue to hurt people. Fighters who kill people have a serious problem with that. They find it difficult to go back in the ring, and it can discourage them from fighting. Do you think you'll have any problem with that as this settles into your philosophy?
Answer that?
Okay.
Or for the first part?
Yeah.
Which is, this is what we do. Okay, so I lost my finishing instinct after that particular fight. That is not something I'm going to encourage. I'm going to steer him away from that. He has to be as ruthless as he can be. You cannot afford to have this sensitive mindset about what you do, because he is in equal danger as the opponent is. And the best way to protect him, as a manager, as a father, as a mentor, you keep the mindset that you have, which is a warrior's mindset.
As I said before, my dream, my goal, my ambition is to become a world champion. I'm never going to realize that dream if I have any doubts, if I have any thoughts about reservations of okay, what happened to Nick might happen to this guy. It may be cold, but it's what we as fighters have to be. We have to be. We have to have a certain coldness about us to be able to do what we do. It's not really up to me. It's up to the referees to control that. I've got to go in there and win by any means necessary, under the rules of boxing, of course. What's happened is it's a tragedy, but I can't let that stop me from fulfilling my dream.
Could I ask Chris Senior, Kevin Easton from The Times, this inevitably has given rise to the abolitionists who want to get rid of boxing, and there is a quote today: you play football, you play cricket, you don't play boxing. Can you justify for those abolitionists why boxing should continue?
Yes, I can. Boxing should continue for this one reason. If it were ever to be abolished, it would go underground. And then there would be far, far more incidents of damage to fighters. It will only go underground. The Boxing Board of Control do an excellent job in protecting fighters. Since Michael Watson, every fighter that has been in the position that Nick is now in, they're now able-bodied people. They can walk, they can talk, they can live normally. If you ban it, it goes down the ground, more dangerous. And I don't think any person with a reasonable mind can argue with that. take other forms of entertainment, use your imagination. If you take other forms of entertainment, how can you stop a form of entertainment? The human condition, the nature of the human. If you stop it, if you make it against the law, they go on the ground, they do it behind closed doors. The oldest profession on earth, something you cannot make illegal. And if it is, sorry, the oldest profession on earth, it being illegal, it's one of the biggest industries in the world, right? So, there you go. Does that make sense? Well, gentlemen, ladies, thank you very much. Again, Team Eubank, we will not celebrate until Nick Blackwell makes a full recovery. And for the fans of Chris Eubank Jr., or for the people who are interested in the great game of boxing, the new British champion is Chris Eubank Jr., and you have a very good example representing you, and I think he'll make you proud, and he'll keep you excited in terms of the great game. So now we'll do one-to-ones. Everyone is going to be made to stick to time because we have other things we've got to do in a few hours, and everything has been organized by Emily. So let's do it.
I'm here with Mike Costello. Mike, what did you think of that press conference?
I thought he addressed one of the key issues immediately, which was allegations of insensitivity, which have been put to him by the family of Nick Blackwell. It was a very difficult situation. I mean, I felt it was too soon. He's addressed it at the beginning by saying they had so many requests for years that this was the best way to do it. So,
yeah, I agree. I think it was the best way. What did you think of? Did you see it in a rerun? Did you watch the part of the rerun?
Yeah.
Because I know you was at Sheffield for the Kelvin Mullering of Bizier. That was right. I would say that. Well, I think it was the right thing that Chris Eubank did, because they weren't being insensitive to the case here today, and they both spoke very, very genuinely about the conditions of Nick Blackwell, who fought very gallantly. I just think it's so difficult to stop that fight. But looking back on hindsight, and when I went home and watched, I was there ringside. I watched it playing Semi Tennessee. But watching the fight, it was more to do with Gary Lockett has been criticised heavily. I think one time he called Gavin Reese out earlier in a fight from a body shot when he went over for him. They were complaining about it. I remember a lot of the guys out in America were complaining about that fight. And then with this fight, they're saying, did he make it go on too long? Was it a case of ego? Was it a case of no? I just think like when you're a boxing trainer, especially Gary Lockett fought Kelly Pavlik for the world middleweight title. We have this thing of being vicarious when we live for our fighters, and sometimes I think it could have been also the disdain that the sport previously used to have for Chris Eubank Senior, when we weren't too keen on him. We didn't really like him that much. It took a little while before we got him. He was kind of anti-establishment within the boxing community. And I think maybe that kind of spurred it on a little bit as well. I think all of those intangibles, but I'm not sitting down and saying I'm blaming Gary Lockett, but I think Gary Lockett could have pulled him out quicker than what Victor Lachlan when he was swollen, with a swollen eye. Because if his eye wasn't swollen, that would have gone maybe 12 rounds if Junior didn't stop him.
Yeah. But I always say, and Chris has made the point here, Chris Senior, about Junior, he, as his trainer, father, mentor, whatever you describe him as, knows him better than most. And Gary's been around Nick in training. He knew what Nick had. And you could see in the urgings in the corner in the previous 2 rounds before he stopped that he still felt that there was a fighting chance. And it's so easy in hindsight. That's why I find it difficult to comment, because my judgment is poor. By the time I watched it,
you got the tweets.
I knew the aftermath, I knew the result. So you're bound to be more squeamish. But I still thought, Blackwell was there, still pressing.
But when you watched the fight, did you give the? He was pressing, but did you ever give him a round that he won in that fight? I know Richie Woodall did, and Richie Woodall's in for, like, a lot of people complain about it. I'm not complaining. Richie Woodall he's a well versed man. He was like an Olympian, a British champion, a world title challenger, and a world champion. So I can't complain about anything. But where I was sat, I didn't see. Maybe round 2 they could have gone to Nick Blackwell, but apart from that, I didn't see him do anything.
Yeah, I can understand that. But again, I go back to what I said about how difficult it is. I find the same problem with fights that are really close that you haven't seen. And there's, I remember a fight a few years ago that I didn't watch live, the first one between Eubank and Bradley, which might be one of the most controversial of all time.
Yeah.
They're difficult to watch and to score once you know the result. It's a very, very different mindset. So I actually didn't make, my overall impression was that it was one-sided, but I didn't have pen and paper to score, because sometimes, as you well know, what you've got in pen and paper is actually sometimes very different.
Very, very much different.
You can have 12 very close rounds, and it's 120, 111.
Yeah.
But that can be a really close fight. It's just that every single round you have to favour the blue corner over the red corner.
Well, I really will hope all of Nick Blackwell's family a speedy recovery. But looking on Chris Eubank Jr. by his performance, what do you think the future holds for him?
I think it's great. It's been too insensitive to comment on the nature of the fight since then, because of the injuries to Nick. There's no question he proved himself to be above domestic, which his dad's been saying for a long time.
I would say he's one of the most exciting fighters in this country right now, just for the fact of work rate, his persistence in his punch. He's got he's got an excellent punch vocabulary. He just puts them together. Remember, you've seen a fighter in so long. I remember, Danny Williams used to go over like 4 left hooks, 4 uppercuts. I haven't seen that by fighters in this country. By he was throwing like 3 uppercuts from the trot and connecting. They're the damages that I'm telling you. I was very, very impressed with him. I'm really sorry about the outcome, but I was impressed. 100%. 100%.
That won't necessarily be possible. The fighters will always stand in front of him. The time it won't be so easy to find as he moves over the ring. I think what is exciting about it, and I have to say, planning it difficult to
yeah, I know.
But it's not just what he does in the ring, it's the whole story.
Yeah.
From my point of view, he's a terrific boxer to interview, great story with his dad, so it's the whole package.
It is a very, very good package. Very good package. Anyway, Mike, thanks for your time, man. See, you guys got that on my Facebook. Hey, it's incredible, right? I'm going to sign off for a bit, then I'm going to have a live interview with myself, Chris Eubank Senior and Junior. Right, keep it posted. And crowd mix is coming.